Hi, I'm Jeff, and welcome to another one of my videos where I take a look at all the new comic books coming out on either April 4th or 5th, 2023. And I ask myself the question, what one new comic book would I buy this week if I could buy just one book? There are a lot of books I want to talk about this week, so let's jump right into it. First, by taking a look back at my pick from 2 weeks ago, which was The Neighbors, issue number 1, and the question remains, was it a worthy and worthwhile pick to be my just one book pick of the week? And the answer is no. No, not really. It's not that it was bad. It was not bad. It had a nice little mystery going on. It was creepy, but seemed a little forced. Did a pretty good job defining each one of the characters for me, although it seemed a little heavy-handed in its social perspective in a way, which I don't mind a social perspective, social conscious perspective, but this seemed a little heavy-handed. So the creepiness seemed heavy-handed, the social conscious aspect of it seemed heavy-handed, and it did a good job setting up a mystery that will develop, I'm sure, along further issues. The reason why it really wasn't a worthy and worthwhile pick for me is because I don't plan on picking up issue number 2 or any other issue after it. In a world where I am trying to limit my weekly comics as much as possible, The Neighbors did not do anything that made me require myself to continue to read it moving past issue number 1. So it's going to go into the PC. Hopefully it'll become a TV or a movie or TV show or a movie someday. But other than that, it was a perfectly acceptable read, just not fantastic, and I wouldn't say a worthy or worthwhile just one book pick, but it was a really light week. So I don't think there was a better pick. I just don't think it was much of a week for a good pick. All right, let's go ahead and move forward now and take a look at the books that are coming out this week. Now, I believe there's 10 of them. I'm going to, like last week, read the description, and I'm going to comment on it as little as possible in the interest of moving through this content as quickly as possible. So let's get started. First, the first honorable mention that I want to mention to you is a new book called Jackrabbit, issue number 1 from Image Comics. Here's the description. A new hero rises from mountains of consumer waste, mass homelessness, and devastating climate change. Some call the hero a myth, an urban legend, but others know that it's the junk rabbit come to life. Jimmy Robinson brings a new take to the dystopian tale of how climate disaster alters not only our world, but also the heroes that literally rise from it. Swamp Thing meets RoboCop. Okay, so Junk Rabbit could either be really, really not good. In a similar way as what I was just talking about with The Neighbors, it seems like this has potentially a heavy-handed social commentary element to it, which, I'm not saying things can't have social commentary. I just fear it when it's too heavy-handed. When I feel like I'm not being told a story, I'm being taught a lesson. And lessons can come through narratives and storytelling, but they should be underlying. They should kind of seep their way into my consciousness rather than be plastered on top of it. So I fear that this might be a little heavy-handed in that regard, but it is the beginning of a new story with a new superhero in a world that parallels our own in a lot of ways. So that could be pretty interesting. So if it sounds interesting to you, I wanted it to be on your radar this week. The next book I want to mention to you is a new book. It is called Hairball, issue number 1 of a 4-issue limited series from Dark Horse Comics. Here's the description. A brand new supernatural nightmare that Junji Ito meets Hayao Miyazaki from the Eisner-nominated creators of Fear Case and Apache Delivery Service. A young girl with a black cat begins to suspect the innocuous beast is behind all her troubles, her parents fighting, family plagues, and innumerable supernatural horrors. As she tries her best to rid herself of this creature, she discovers that maybe the cat is not evil after all, and a greater terror may be behind these horrific events harming her life. It mentions here there's a variant cover by Department of Truth's Martin Simmons. So this sounds interesting to me for a few reasons. It's a kind of interesting premise, but only kind of interesting. The premise itself, the idea that like this person thinks that all their troubles are caused by this black cat, but it might be something worse than that. Okay, that's an interesting premise, but not a premise that would make me run out and buy this book. But there is one element that actually is going to make me run out and buy this book, and I am going to buy this book this week. And that element, that feature of this comic book is the writer. The writer is Matt Kindt. Now, I've talked about Matt Kindt a lot recently, but just to refresh your all's memory, Matt Kindt is co-writing Berserker with Keanu Reeves. He also wrote something that they mentioned here in this description, Fear Case, which I read and I thought was fantastic. But then also, very recently, I've been banging the drum hard for a book that I liked a lot, which was Spy Superb, also written by Matt Kindt. So because Matt Kindt has proven himself to me to be such a fantastic writer multiple times, I'm interested in new works from him, and that is why I will be picking up Hairball issue number 1 of the 4-issue limited series, and also why I wanted it to be on your radar. The next book I want to mention to you is a new book. It is Planet of the Apes issue number 1 from Marvel Comics. Here's the description. David F. Walker and Dave Wachter bring Planet of the Apes back to Marvel Comics in spectacular style. A new era of apes kicks off with part 1 of De-Evolution. The ALZ-113 virus has rampaged across planet Earth, and humanity is crumbling. While well-meaning researchers hunt for a cure, a fanatical group of humans has their own solution: kill all apes. Peacekeeper Juliana Toubon is one of the few willing to stand against them, but the crisis is spreading, and soon apes will witness the true depths of human cruelty. Eisner-winning writer David F. Walker joins forces with artist Dave Wachter on one of the most beloved sci-fi franchises in history. On the surface, Planet of the Apes seems a little hokey, but what's interesting to me is that on the occasions where I have exposed myself to any Planet of the Apes narrative, be it the one from the 70s or the ones that they did, 10 or 15 years ago, I forget how long it was ago. Every time I engage with the Planet of the Apes, the world of Planet of the Apes, I'm not too disappointed about it. I actually think that it's a very interesting narrative. So I'm glad to see it in comic books. And so if you're a fan of the Planet of the Apes or you're a fan of sci-fi in general, I wanted to make sure that Planet of the Apes was on your radar because I think it is worthwhile. The next book I'm going to mention to you this week is Star Wars, issue number 33 from Marvel Comics. Here's the description. Untethered. Luke Skywalker's connection to the Force has been disrupted. One of his most powerful tools in his journey to become a Jedi is gone. He must undertake an epic quest to find what he has lost, or he and the galaxy will fall to darkness. I mentioned this book this week because I mention it every time it comes out because I buy it every time it comes out. So since it's on my pull list this week, I mention it to all of you. It is really, really good. Of course, you're not going to start with issue number 33, but if you're reading it, kudos to you because I think it's fantastic. And I'm really enjoying it. So I mention it to you this week. The next book I want to mention to you is a new book. It is Disney Villains Scar, issue number 1 from Dynamite. Here's the description. A startling new vision starring Disney's greatest villain, set within the world of The Lion King. Eisner and Ringo Award-winning author Chuck Brown and stunning artist Trevor Fraley tell a tale of fire and fury centered on an enraged Scar, unable to accept that he will never be king, not so long as Mufasa and his new son inhabit Pride Rock. A plan is starting to formulate within Scar's corrupt mind, which will bring him face to face with the mysterious shaman, Rafiki. So, first I'll start off by saying that calling Scar Disney's greatest villain to me is a bit of a reach, only because Disney has had, through the decades and decades, some really great villains. And to say that Scar is the greatest, I don't know that I agree with that. I don't know off the top of my head who I would say is the greatest, but I don't think my head would go to Scar. But that aside, The Lion King, I'm sure most of us have all seen The Lion King. It's really, really good. It's a great story, fantastically told, with really great characters, and Scar is absolutely one of those fantastic, great characters that really makes that property as good as it is. So, if you're a fan of Disney, if you're a fan of Disney villains, if you're a fan of The Lion King, this might be something for you to consider picking up this week. The next book that I want to mention to you is a new book. It is called The Nasty. Issue number 1 from Vault Comics. Here's the description. Calling all scary movie fans. Scotland, 1994. 18-year-old Thumper Connell still has an imaginary friend, the masked killer from his favorite slasher film. Thumper is obsessed with horror and always has been. He fills his time with scary VHS rentals and hanging out with his fellow fans, the Murder Club. But everything changes when his local video shop acquires one of the notorious films known as Video Nasties. Films so scary, they're the target of the British Moral Decency League's crusade to ban and burn. But it's only a movie, right? It's all just imaginary, isn't it? A story about the perception of evil, the power of genre, the love of fandom, the need to create art, and crap your pants terror. I appreciate the fact that they ended with a bit of a joke, because ultimately, horror movies are meant to be fun. And this is in the horror movie genre, but as a comic book, of course. Now, people who hate horror movies are like, what are you talking about, Jeff? Horror movies are not fun, but people who do like horror movies, I think, do find them fun. So I'm glad they interjected a little bit of fun into this description, because if you're doing a comic book about people who are fans of horror movies, I would hope that there's some fun in there. But then, of course, there also has to be some scares in there. So it sounds like this is going to deliver on all of those fronts. And if those type of things interest you, I wanted The Nasty to be on your radar. The next book I want to mention to you is a new book. It is Codename Ric Flair, Magic 8 Ball. It is a one-shot from Scout Comics. Here's the description. The nature boy Ric Flair, the Rolex-wearing, diamond ring-wearing, kiss-stealing, wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, jet-flying son of a gun who is regarded by most as the greatest professional wrestler of all time, finally has his own comic series. This brand new original comic details his fact or fiction forays as an international super spy in the 1980s and 1990s. The series purports that Flair, who did in fact travel around the world for wrestling matches, was also a secret agent for the US government, using his persona as the ultimate wrestling heel as the perfect cover. Codename Ric Flair, Magic 8 Ball follows one of Flair's missions in the late 1980s. So when I was a kid, I was a fan of professional wrestling, and kind of in a big way. And so I understand people who are big fans of professional wrestling. Now, Ric Flair, if you can believe it, was a little bit before my time. So he wasn't a big one for me, but he is somebody who is on my radar. And this just sounds like a fun story. Taking him and telling a fictional story of a real person, and the fictional idea is that he was a super spy, international super spy, and also a professional wrestler. That sounds like fun, and as I've mentioned many times before, fun is fun, and I like fun. So if you're a fan of wrestling and a fan of fun, you might consider this book this week. All right, now what we are going to do is we are going to bring back a feature that I haven't had on these videos in a long time. And that feature is Chit Chat. Yes, it's the return of Chit Chat, where we talk about books written by my second favorite writer out there right now, Chip Zdarsky. He is fantastic, and he has 2 books coming out this week. The first one is Batman, issue 134 from DC. Here's the description. It's all-out war as only Batman stands between Red Mask and a Gotham City full of bodies. How much is the Dark Knight willing to sacrifice to save this city? That's it. That's all you need to know. And basically all you need to know on top of that is that it's written by Chip Zdarsky. Jorge Jimenez is doing the cover art for this, but he is still on his break from doing the interior art. But then also it's written by Chip Zdarsky, and Chip Zdarsky is fantastic. And his run so far on Batman has been very entertaining. I'm enjoying it a lot. So if you like superhero comics, and you think Batman's cool, and you like it when it's written by a really good writer, you should be picking up Batman. It's really good, and I'm looking forward to getting it this week. The other book that I want to mention this week from Chip Zdarsky is Stillwater, issue number 18 from Image Comics. Here's the description. Series finale. After all these years, the town of Stillwater is no longer still. The Eisner-nominated series reaches its epic, extra-length conclusion. Okay? I mentioned this book, and this book was almost my just one book pick for the week. Now, none of you are going to pick up Stillwater issue number 18 if you haven't been reading issues 1 through 17. Obviously, you're not going to start with the end. If anything, you might pick it up in trade when they collect it all together. And I would recommend it. It's not like a life-changing story, but it's just a really good one. It's one that makes you think. It's one that puts you in a situation that is unique and unusual. And unique and unusual human behaviors arise out of it. It is a story fantastically told by Chip Zdarsky. I'm really excited to read the final issue of Stillwater because I've enjoyed it so much, but I'm really sad to see it end. All right, that takes us to the last book that I want to talk about today, and that book is my just one book pick for this week. And that book is SpiderMan, issue number 7 from Marvel Comics. Here's the description. The end of the Spider-Verse is here. Friends become enemies, enemies become friends, and now all of the Spider-Verse ends. Jessica Drew, gone. Peter Parker, gone. And they aren't the only ones erased by the sacred sting knife. How can Silk and the rest of the spiders win this spider war? So that description actually sounds pretty interesting. I have not been following the narrative on this book. I'm not reading it. I don't know what's going on at all, but that description seems pretty interesting. Now, of course, when you say, Jessica Drew gone, Peter Parker gone, it's comic books. You know that they're not gone for good, but it still can make for cool and interesting storytelling. So there may be some really great narrative components and as a reason to pick up this book this week. It's from writer Dan Slott and artist Mark Bagley, and these people are firmly established as hardcore and legitimate contributors to comic books. So there's lots of reasons here to consider checking this out. Oh, and just to be clear, there are 2 Spider-Man books coming out this week. There's Amazing Spider-Man, and then there's just Spider-Man, just the straight up Spider-Man here by Dan Slott and Mark Bagley. We're talking specifically about plain old Spider-Man, not the other one. So even though the description sounds pretty interesting, there is a very specific reason why it is the just one book pick this week. And it is this right here. Now, this is a spoiler cover here. This is how it was solicited. This all-white cover with spoiler across it. They didn't release the art, and officially even on the Previews World website, they do not have the art listed yet, but of course it's out there already, so I was able to find it. So if you don't want spoilers, hit the like button and I'll see you next week. But if you're okay with a little bit of spoilers, here's what's interesting about this book this week. This spoiler cover is actually this. Yes, Spider-Man issue number 7, introducing Spider-Boy. Now, you could comment on, what's a Spider-Boy? Well, you know, the Spider-Verse is a well that Marvel Comics has been going to with great success over and over and over again. And this is, you know, more of that. You think, well, Spider-Man was a boy when he became Spider-Man. How can you have a Spider-Boy? What's the distinction? Yeah, let's not get too bogged down in this. What does matter is that according to Key Collector Comics, this is the first appearance of Spider-Boy, this issue. It doesn't say on cover, it just says first appearance of Spider-Boy. So you have to assume that all copies of this feature the first appearance of Spider-Boy. But something else that's also interesting is Key Collector also lists Edge of Spider-Verse number 3 as the origin of Spider-Boy. So I don't know how you can have an origin without it being the first appearance, unless you tell a story that's like the origin, but you don't show the character whose origin it is. You just have a story, and then you have a character kind of show up at the end, and somehow that story that didn't feature that character until the very, very end is their origin story, and then boop, bloop, there they are. And so it's a cameo for the character, but it's also their origin. That's the only explanation I can think of. Or Key Collector's information is incorrect. But assuming Key Collector's information is correct, the Spider-Verse is legitimate. The Spider-Verse is loved, and the Spider-Verse is worthy and worthwhile. I myself have an Ultimate Fallout 4 in a 988. I have Edge of Spider-Verse issue number 2, the first appearance of Spider-Gwen. I have that in a 9.8. These are things that I've invested a solid amount of money into because I think there's a lot of value there in the future. So it's possible Spider-Boy will be that in the future. So what I would recommend for you is, if you're interested in this book, as soon as you finish hitting the like button and shutting off this video, call your LCS. Reserve this copy immediately. Do not wait until the day of to show up to your comic book shop to pick this up, because these will disappear. Because people didn't know what they were going to be ordering. The shops didn't know what they'd be ordering when they had to order this book. But people are now figuring that out. And so people are going to be scooping this up, and I want you to be one of those people. And that's why I have made Spider-Man issue number 7, my just one book pick for this week. That's it. Hopefully this video wasn't too long. Hit that like button. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. I promise I'm going to get better about reading and respond. I got one comment last week, and I gave it a heart. I responded. So please comment. I do appreciate it if you're interested in commenting, and subscribe if you haven't already done that. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.